With work finally coming to an end in terms of writing my next book on free-to-play design, I figure it's time for a critical thought discussing monetization systems, as I guess this is going to be our Game Economics 101 video. As I'm sure many of you are very well aware of, if you want to have a living making video games, then you need to have money coming in. And thinking about the monetization of your game is an essential point about that. Now, when we talk about retail and traditional games, your monetization system is just literally put it on a store page, people give you money to play it. And I mean, that's as simple as it gets. We could probably wrap up the video right now. But, as I'm sure we all know, things have certainly changed when it comes to monetization over the past 10 years, and even beyond that, with the rise and growing acceptance of free-to-play and live service games. And this is something that is very important to discuss. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll include a link to it in the description, that Valve's Joe Ludwig at the time, I think this was the 2011 or 2012 GDC, gave a talk about how they transitioned Team Fortress 2 into becoming a free-to-play game, and the challenges and pitfalls that came with it. And one of the things that he said that I think is very important, if you have any intention of developing and supporting a game long term, again, we're talking about live service, you need to figure out what your monetization system, or more specifically, your primary monetization system is going to be. This is what is going to drive people to spend money in your game, be it new characters in a gacha, cosmetics, maps, clothing, whatever the heck you want. But one of the things that's very important to understand, monetization in this respect, when we're talking about a game that is planning or has gone free-to-play or live service, you need to consider this as early into your game's development as you can, because your primary monetization system is going to be intertwined with your gameplay. Now, specifically, you do not want it to become a part of your core gameplay loop, as in having money affect how somebody's actually playing your game. So this would be something like, oh no, my characters are too slow, let me spend $29.99 and everyone gets 30% attack speed for the next month. That would be very much pay to win. And this is why when we talk about some of the better monetization systems, they're typically built on the content or systems that are either adjacent or connected to your core gameplay loop. So, in a gacha game, that would be the gacha characters. If we're talking about a game that is built on heroes or champions like League of Legends or Dead by Daylight, that's all new characters. Now, you can have multiple monetization systems, and one of the things that we've seen from a lot of games is having at least two, your primary and your secondary. The primary monetization, this is the one that it is very hard, if not impossible, to acquire this content as a free player. So, the most common one, of course, is cosmetics. And this definitely gets into the issue when we talk about ethical free-to-play design, or just ethical design in general, that I'll be saving for an upcoming video. If we talk about a secondary system, or secondary monetization, this is something that you can acquire the currency or the resources through playing, and money is simply there to speed it up. So, in Team Fortress 2, their secondary system is, well, the Manco shop. That, yes, you can spend money and get these items right away, or just let the random drops do it for you. Now, what's interesting is how developers will tend to focus on different aspects. And here's like two very weird examples of this. So one example is the game Azure Lane, aka World War II Ship Girl Simulator. And this is a title that is probably the most generous when it comes to giving out its gacha currency to free players. Through just general play on my own, I've somehow gotten 2 of the 4 ultra rares that are in the game right now. Where it's not generous is when it comes to its skins. And the game features lots and lots and lots and lots of cosmetics for all the different characters. I would show you screenshots of these, but there's a good chance I'll get flagged for showing a few of them on a stream or video. And you can only get them using the game's premium currency, which is either given out by doing major rewards, or you gotta just spend the money outright. Now, the flip side of that is the game Arknights. This is a tower defense gacha style game. Here, the cosmetics, while they are premium and you can't spend money to get them, they're not the main draw of playing this game. It is getting new characters. The new characters bring with them new utility. It's probably the most, I guess, game of a lot of the gacha style games I play on mobile and so on. The problem, though, it is probably one of the stingiest when it comes to its premium currency, or specifically to its gacha currency. It is very hard as a free player to get good characters in it. And part of the reason for that is that every character brings with it its own unique utility. So getting that 6-star character is a huge deal. And of course, good luck making a lot of progress if you get unlucky. Now, the point about these games is that whatever your secondary systems are, you need to give the player a means to collect them. And we could certainly argue in today's market, you should also be giving them the means of collecting your primary monetization as well. Now, like I said a few minutes ago, you can monetize whatever the heck you want out of a game, but typically the more you try to kind of, tempt fate or push it, the more people will view this game as being very greedy. You don't want to have monetizations for every single aspect of your game. Pay to speed up crafting, pay to buy new cosmetics, pay to do cooking, pay to roguelike, pay to roguelite, and so on and so forth. And as another point, you can supplement monetization systems with new content. That's, of course, one of the major draws of these games. New cosmetics, new characters, new gameplay affecting modes, and so on. What you don't want to do is introduce a brand new system solely for monetization. So this would be something like when Payday 2 decided to implement loot boxes. I think this was like 2 to 3 years after its original release. Or when we see a lot of mobile games adding a brand new progression system that is just inherently tied to monetization and microtransactions. So with the game I just mentioned, Azure Lane, is an example of a game that actually added to its rarity tiers. There's been a few other ones, like Dragon Ball Legends did. And you would think that this would anger a lot of people. If you're telling me that this is the highest mark of characters in your game, and then you're selling me this, that would be considered a cheat, right? Actually, it has not been. And these games have seen a lot of support and excitement about having these new characters. So what you want to do, if you're going to expand rarity tiers in a game, there needs to be something noticeable. It can't just be, okay, my character, the highest rarity or an SR is this strong, a ultra rare is this strong. It has to be that they offer something unique or otherwise different from your other rarity tiers. As another point, if you do introduce a kind of new ultra tier, you can't treat it in the same kind of schedule as your other ones. A lot of hero collectors and gacha style games may release a new character or new characters maybe every month, every 2 months, things like that. And if you go with that kind of schedule, you don't want to just be throwing in ultra rares every 2-3 weeks or every month. If you're going to have something represent your new highest tier of rarity, then it has to be rare. And this is also another major point when it comes to marketing. That if you introduce something as a new expansion or a new ultra character or whatever, you better market the you-know-what out of that, because that's a major point for your game. Now, with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about a little bit more when it comes to balancing monetization systems, as this will kind of be a good lead-in for when we talk about ethical free-to-play or ethical design in a later video. But as always, if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then check out the following books. For entry-level students, we have 20 Essential Games to Study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with free-to-play coming in 2022. When we talk about balance with video games, we're typically discussing things from a gameplay or playability point of view. How strong should something be? Is an option too good, too bad, etc.? But when we talk about things from a monetization standpoint, balance takes on a different connotation, as we want to talk about what is fair in terms of charging a player. How much should someone expect to play to get something? Can they acquire through free play, etc., etc.? And this is another thing that leads back or was discussed in the Team Fortress 2 video that I linked below. The ideas of valuing time and money. For people who play any kind of game, they will view these two things differently. Somebody who puts a lot of value on time means that they don't want to wait for the good stuff. They want to play, they want to be focused. If they're going to play your game for an hour at a time, they want to play at the most optimized, the best possible resources, you name it. They don't want to spend 30 minutes waiting for energy to refill or wait 2 days for something to finish building. They want it now, they want it fast, and they want to just start playing. For somebody who values money over time, they don't want to put extra money in your game. Maybe they're on a budget, maybe they're unemployed. If they can get something for free, even if it takes them 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times the amount otherwise to just buy it outright, they'll be willing to put into that or wait for that. They're not interested in collecting every single thing or being the number one player, but they still want and they still expect a quality experience. And if your game has figurative paywalls or difficulty spikes that say, oh, you must spend this amount of money to see this content, people are going to get annoyed and frustrated and leave. And as a developer, you need to think about how your monetization systems are going to impact the overall experience of your game. This is one of the aspects, again, when it comes to unethical and ethical gameplay or unethical and ethical design, that somebody can play a game and the game is inherently tilted to make the experience worse in some way, shape, or form if they don't spend money. This could be, again, as small as locking cosmetics or, forcing you to wear the starter, very basic clothes if you don't spend money. There's going to be something more explicit by literally designing content that if you don't have at least, 4 SSR characters or your characters haven't hit at least a level 500, you're not going to be able to make progress. And you're going to either grind a long time, spend money, or just outright quit out of frustration. And we can especially see this in PvP style games, where it can often turn into the battle of the checkbook rather than who has the better skills at a game. So as the developer, you need to consider how your monetization is affecting the experience. And like I said, when it comes to valuing time and money, most often I talk about things from the time perspective because, again, I don't exactly have millions of dollars to throw to get 6-star characters in a game. But it is important to consider people who don't have a lot of time. That if somebody maybe only has an hour or 2 a week to play a game, or maybe 30 minutes a day, how are they going to progress in your game? Because as a goal of mobile and live service design or free-to-play design, you need to attract and retain as much of your audience as possible. You don't want people quitting because your game is too unfair in terms of its monetization, whether it's from a time or money standpoint. In terms of pricing content, this is where it gets very tricky. I mean, we could probably have a mini lecture just on the psychology and thought process of this alone. When we look at kind of games that are built on randomized progression or randomized monetization, loot boxes, gotchas, hero collectors, and so on, the more important something is, the more it's going to cost, obviously. When you're dealing with fixed content as your monetization, as in, once I buy this character, that purchase is done. I don't need to spend one more cent to get this thing. You should be pricing that a little bit on the higher side. Again, when we're saying quote unquote higher, I'm not talking, oh, this character should be $600 to roll for the gacha. But you want to keep this balance in check, that the more important something is to playing your game, you should give people enough chances to acquire it. And I'm being a little bit restrained in this video because, again, the next video is going to be talking about ethical design, and that's going to be a big topic. And a lot of the points here are going to be referenced and definitely clarified there. If you're going to sell people smaller things or things that are meant to be a quote-unquote almost like an infinite drain, so buying premium currency, buying gacha materials, buying, I don't know, super rare scarves that you can attach to various characters for bonuses, you want those purchases to be, well, as the name says, micro. If you're going to sell someone currency, they shouldn't be having to spend $50 to $100 every week on it. And the fairer games, again, will often give everyone access to this stuff. This is one of the major differences between kind of first generation mobile and where we're at right now in the third generation. In the best third generation games, you should be earning enough premium currency or gacha materials or whatever the heck you want to call it to compete. And again, when I say to compete, that is in some major air quotes. We're not talking about a free player who, just by playing, can get 100% of everything. We're talking about a free player who, without spending money, can still acquire enough content, enjoy the game enough, that they can be at least able to stand next to paying players when it comes time to compete or play against one another. If you cannot balance your game around that, then your game is not considered ethical, and it's not considered free player friendly. And this is also the same if we talk about player versus environment or PvE games. Because again, a lot of people will look at this solely from the PvP standpoint, how player A was going to match up against player B. But you need to also consider this when it comes to somebody playing against your own content. That if you inherently or if you explicitly put in spikes, that let's say if someone can beat chapter 10 of your game, they unlock the super crazy, awesome, great content. So you make the chapter 9 boss like 10 times harder than anything else. That's not fair to them. And this is kind of the issue that I ran into with Arknights. That Arknights is one of those games that it's very free to play until it's not. And then the game just kind of punches you in the gut. Because you're not just dealing with the utility of characters, you're dealing with the stats and the RPG abstraction. So that if the enemies go in one chapter to now being 3 to 5 times higher in terms of their stats in the next, utility only gets you so far. It gets you quite far, there's no denying that, but eventually you're going to hit that wall. And this is something you need to consider if you're building a free-to-play or live service game. Are there any walls that are going to stop somebody from being able to play? And can you provide the player with enough free means to get around them? If there's any point to take home from this section, it's this. The major aspect behind third generation mobile and free-to-play games today is that monetization is not designed to fix your game. You shouldn't be having monetization that's making your game better to play simply by removing something you inherently or intentionally put into it. Third generation free-to-play and live service today is about letting the player get something that they want, something that they want to enjoy doing in your game, or allowing them to see more of this great content. This is why for a lot of third generation games, they moved away from fun pain and having in-game ads. Instead, like we've said in the first part, it's about focusing the monetization onto one or a couple of monetization systems. Again, this is why a lot of hero collector style games typically make their characters very bombastic, very unique. You're not spending money in, let's say, Genshin Impact to get just another archer or just another sword wielder. They have their own unique abilities, their own unique value. And people are more willing to spend money if it's something good. I know it's a surprise. That's your economics lesson for this video. But to begin to wrap things up, when we look at monetization today, it is not about making a worse experience for people who don't spend money, or giving a noticeably different experience for people who do. If you want someone to spend money, you have to offer them something that is both attractive and something that has value or permanence. Again, if I'm playing a gacha game like Genshin Impact, Azure Lane, Arknights, or whatever, when I acquire that 5-star, 6-star, UR, LR, BLT, whatever you want to describe your highest rarity as, that's it. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't need to spend money anymore. My goal has been accomplished. In a lot of the lesser games, they just tend to throw so much at you that it's impossible to focus. That, I throw $10 at a game or 50 cents or whatever, I don't know what I'm going to get. And this is why when we look at some of the older examples, that a lot of the monetization is very much obscured by multiple currencies and different drop rates. And it's very hard to actually know, if I spend this money, am I actually getting something I want in return? This was one of the issues that I think plagued Marvel Contest of Champions. That in that game is entirely loot box driven. And there is a noticeable difference in terms of different 5 and 6-star characters. So if I spend $30 and let's say I get the worst 5 or 6-star character, I pretty much wasted my money. And again, there is a lot more to gacha design and monetization design that I want to talk about, and a lot of that is featured in my next book, Game Design Deep Dive, free to play. And that will be coming, I'm hoping, sometime later in 2022 when everything is finished, wrapped up. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any other topics you want me to talk about in a video regarding live service, free to play, things like that, let me know in the comments below. Check out our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.